I'm here to talk about the Utah Daltons, and that's, I guess, why we gathered in Salt Lake City this year, which I appreciate. Thanks to Michael and David and Karen, kind of all together. I appreciate that. The ancestral lines of the Utah Daltons is South Wales Dalton, who lives today in Lancaster. Thomas Dalton was born in 1831 in Century, South Wales. He arrived in the United States in 1759. His descendants migrated to Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Illinois or Nauvoo to come on into Utah. Now, the first Dalton of our line was named Thomas Dalton, as I said, born in 1731. And we know that by a christening record that was from a bishop transcript records of the St. Vital Parish Church of Penry at St. David's Diocese of Camden. Now, I didn't memorize all this, so I'm just going to read it today. The transcript is in Latin, and it reads, Thomas, the legitimate son of James Dalton of the Adobe of Letty Chan, 7 May 1732. Letty Chan is the Welsh name for the place of Adobe in which Thomas Dalton was born. Now, have you ever read Welsh? That name nobody can pronounce. From there.
No vowel.
Don't work. No. They was pioneers with very little property. I mean, they had nothing. Like that Kevin told us last night, they were just pioneers living off the land, and that was it. They migrated westward as the American frontier expanded, and you know all the history about the Mormons coming to Utah. This family is different from the Dalton line to the UK or Australia. The only thing that they owned was their oxen, wagons, and horses. They did buy property in Nauvoo, however. They had the money to do that, and they built cabins in Nauvoo and farms. And from Nauvoo, when they was finally kicked out, this Dalton family numbered about 12 at that time. They left Nauvoo in the winter of 1847. They lived in the various Mormon places before crossing the plains, and settled first in Salt Lake City, where they all did that early time. There was 2 forts here, and believe it or not, there was about 500 people, families, inside each of these forts. If you can believe that. Just terrible condition. John Dalton Sr. was born in Whiteside, Pennsylvania, was the first son of 4 children born to Thomas Dalton and his wife Polly. He raised his family on a farm called Dalton Hollow. He had 5 daughters and 4 sons. John Dalton Sr. was born in 1763 in a small settlement in Coonsley, Frederick County, Maryland. Thomas and Mary, Polly Freeman of Ireland, and that's all we know about her. John Dalton Sr. had 2 brothers and 1 sister. James, born in 1765, Charles, 1767, and Polly, 1769. We have no history of these people, except we know that Paul married is George Alden, which naturally I'm searching for as a resident. Three daughters married, three of John Senior's daughters married three Vargas brothers. Three of the sons moved to Michigan, then to Nauvoo, Illinois, and then the sons migrated to Utah in 1847. There were three sisters, daughter of John Sr. and Elizabeth Cooper, that met and married with the three Farguson brothers, sons of Isaac Farguson. They all lived in Wysock, Bradford County, Pennsylvania. Now, all of these Dalton, this family, sold the property and packed their belongings and left Wysock and traveled on to Washtenaw County, Michigan, in the fall of 1835. Now, there was a group of 50 of them. They all just packed up and left, sold the property, and away they went. And I believe that they went up there because they owned a sawmill, and that area was getting really complicated, and the trees were running out, and they had heard that up in this wilds of Michigan there was trees, so I believe that's why they moved up there. The three Utah Dalton brothers was John Dalton Sr., Simon Cooker Dalton, and Charles Dalton. Now, all three Daltons were polygamous, and Cook was their son. And that's another story. John Dalton Sr. was born July 10th, 1801 in Wyoming, Stern County, Pennsylvania, on the right bank of the Susquehanna River, 4 miles above Wilkesboro. Later, he was a farmer and a blacksmith. He had blue eyes, black hair, was a great user of tea, coffee, and tobacco. Now, he wasn't a Mormon at that time. And he was accustomed to drink whiskey after this. After moving north to Wysock, John Dalton Jr. owned a sawmill. And at this time, logging was not a primary industry of the state, so I imagine that's how he made a little bit of money, you know. On January 21, 1822, we married Rebecca Turner Cromer to one that Bradford County, Pennsylvania. Rebecca was a intelligent and cultured woman and participated in all the trials and hardship of pioneer life with her husband. It was in Wysock Township where all their children were born and raised. Sometime in 1838, John and his family moved west into Wisconsin. Now, that was after they settled in Michigan. He purchased land in Geneva Township, territory of Wisconsin in 1839. John Jr. and Rebecca and their 7 children had to cut and saw logs for a new home until the unbroken soil for planting was done, and 7 children had, they had 7 children, and they had to scratch out a new life in that territory. John Jr. sold his house and land sometime around June 1st, 1843, and they moved to Nauvoo. After having good horses and wagon, he hauled material for the building of the historic temple that was being built there. Now, that temple was never built completely until after, well, it never was. It was huge, but but it was never finally completed and dedicated. It finally burned down. That's what happened to it. Lightning, not from the moth. It was rebuilt in 2002, exactly how it was then. And Nauvoo today is a very popular tourist attraction. I'll tell you, they got everything there. I mean, it's still a so-called pioneer town. And all us Mormon Daltons, we need to visit there. I have not gone, but I'm going next spring. Approximately sometime between February 8th to the 18th, 1846, John Dalton and his junior and his family packed up to leave Nauvoo for the long trek to the promised land of the Great Salt Lake. The group of saints that John Dalton Jr. and family with crossed the frozen Mississippi River and landed on the Ohio side in the Mormon community of Montfort. From there, they went on to Garden Grove, Iowa. After staying there for a while, they went on to winter quarters. And Leslie Crump found some information from winter quarters on this visit here. She's working on it, so hopefully we'll get it all where they was, how long they stayed. Now, John Jr. and his family crossed the plains to the Great Salt Lake in 1848 with Brigham Young's second trip. John Jr. brought land on Block 32, Lot 4, on 6 feet between 4th and 5th South in Salt Lake City, and he spent most of his life doing work for the church. John Dalton also run the church farm when he lived in Salt Lake City. Now, he was in charge of the actual church farm for about 10 years. Now, that is the only picture we know of Simon Crooker Dalton known to exist, and that's his fifth wife, Charlotte Louise Dorr. He was born in Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania. He married Anna Whitman and had 5 children. Later, he married 4 more wives. They had 15 more children. He moved to Centerville and then to Springfield, Utah. And he's buried in the Springfield Cemetery with his sons. And most of his family is there. Nothing is known about Simon's childhood, but we can only assume that it was just like all the rest of the Daltons and Whitelock. He was 19 years old when he married Anna Whitman of Whitelock, and like I said, he married 5 more times. The next Dalton is Charles Dalton was born in 1810 in Whitelock, Pennsylvania. He married Mary Elizabeth Warren and had 3 children. Their only son was John Luther Dalton, who we Utah Daltons are thankful for, because he's the one that found all the information on our ancestors. He served 2 church missions to England and documented it pretty good. We're thankful for that. He married two other wives and had 6 more children. Now, after living in Salt Lake City, he moved to a farm in Weaver County, Utah, then to Hooper, Davis County, and he and his family is buried in the Austin City Cemetery. John Luther Dalton, he was the only son of Charles and Elizabeth. Served 2 missions, like I said. He researched clear back to approximately 1100 AD. He married Elizabeth Suter, had 3 children. He married Amy Edgley in polygamy, and then he moved to Pocatello, Idaho, and that's where he is buried. Now, John Luther Dalton was 19 years old when he was called to this mission to England. And he is the direct line of Leslie Trump. Now, he had built a large 3-story house in Ogden for his first wife, Elizabeth. But he never lived in that house because his first wife kicked him out. No way. No way you can live here. And that caused him a lot of grief. And he was on the run for a while. And he was high up in the Ogden church, and he got them to give him the presidency of the San Francisco mission, and he went to San Francisco for a year or 2, and so the law wouldn't be on him, you know. Now, the Mormon Battalion, you all heard about that group of people. President James Polk authorized the formation of a battalion of 500 plus men to fight in the Mexican War and help aid church settlers moving west. These members was Edward Dalton, son of John Dalton Jr., Henry Simon Dalton, son of Henry Dalton, and Harry Dalton, son of John Dalton Sr. Now, that guy last night told us about Edward Dalton, and Michael says that Edward Adams called him and said he couldn't make it, and he is a member of the pair of one Daltons, which is these people here. Battalion opened up new routes to much of the southwest and west, and this was the only religious unit ever authorized by the U.S. government. Now, Erewhon Dalton says Edward Dalton, son of John Jr. and Elizabeth Cromer, born 1827 in Weissville. He married Elizabeth Meek, had 12 children. He married 2 other wives, had 7 more children. Moved to Erewhon from Salt Lake City. The next Dalton of interest is Edward Meeks Dalton. I don't know where that is. No, it's back that way. No, back. Just front. Now, go, keep going. I'm sorry about this. We'll get there. The next Dalton is Henry Simon Dalton, and he spelled his name with an O for some strange reason. He just, all the records show that it was an O. He was the son of Henry Dalton and Elizabeth Green. He was born in 1927 in Genealogical, Sioux County, New York. He grew up in White House. He was adopted by John Jr. after his father died. He followed his uncles to Nauvoo, and he was a member of the Mormon battalion. After when he was discharged from the battalion in San Diego, California, in 1848, he and some of the other Mormon men went north to San Francisco to the gold fields, but they found nothing. He boarded with a family that owned a hotel, and a proprietor had a young daughter, Elizabeth, who became Henry's wife. They then decided to go back to Utah with the other Daltons, and they made their home in Centerville, Utah, and raised 5 children. And that's it. It's great. Harry Dalton, and now people get them mixed up. I mean, that's why they do put some crevices in it. He was the first son of John Jr. and Rebecca Palmer. He married Elizabeth Ferguson in Nauvoo, member of the Mormon battalion. He lived in Annabella, Utah. He had 2 wives and 11 children. I don't think he was a polygamist. Charles Wakeman Dalton, son of Simon Cooker Dalton, born in 1826 in White House. His first wife was Julietta Owen, had 9 children. He married 4 more wives, had 26 more children. He was a farmer, a rancher, a sheriff, store, and trade owner in southern Utah. He's buried in the Beaver Cemetery. Yeah.
That's what I.
Yeah, he's my hero. After living in Salt Lake City, Charles Wakeman Dalton went south and helped settle southern Utah. He lived in many places in his life. He really never could stay in one place at a time. He last lived in Beaver, and like I said, he's buried in the Beaver Cemetery. Charles Wakeman Dalton was the first to join the LDS Church in April 27th, 1843. He married his first wife in January 13, 1847 in New York State. He married number 2 wife, Elizabeth Paxton Allred, November 2nd, 1850. Now the Circleville Daltons, that's where me and Arthur was born and raised. No, I wasn't raised there, I was raised in Utah. Oh, Mardell, his brother, raised in Circleville, and I'm still waiting for you guys' story on your teen life on the ranch. Okay? Now, Martin Carroll Dalton Sr. was born February 17, 1867 in Beaver County, Utah. He was the eighth child of Charles Waitman Dalton and Elizabeth Hackett Lawrence. He moved to Circleville, Utah when he was about 6 or 7 years old, and he spent the next 62 years working and supporting his family's 9 children. And his only wife, Charlotte Whitaker, which is how me and Austin, one of the ways we connect.
Here's the interesting thing. Rod and I are second cousins on the Whitaker line, third cousins on the Daltons line.
Everybody in Circleville. I didn't say that.
That was because Charles Waitman of Dalton was the first settler, Circleville. Circleville was founded in 1865 by a group of Mormons, but the Indian War made it so that they had to abandon the settlement because they were afraid that they would be annihilated by the Indians. And from 1865 to 1875, there was no population in Circleville. Then in 1875, Charles Waitman came across the mountain from Beaver into Circleville Valley. And a couple of years later, James Whitaker Jr. joined him. And so they were the two prominent families to settle Circleville. And throughout the next 100 years, there was a complete intermarriage between those two families. And so that's how I can say Rodney is my second cousin, one of Whitaker, my third cousin, one of Dalton. It's just an intermarriage of these two families.
Rod, do you mind if I explain a little bit about having multiple wives?
Multiple wives, huh?
Yeah, so I'm just going to talk a little short bit about having multiple wives. And I really think that it was there. A lot of the people who are coming in, seems like women seem to be a little more tender to spiritual things than men do. So there was lots of women coming into the church, and there was not so many men coming into the church. But families are so important to our church, and so we really wanted to be able to have families be together and have the same religion and the same household and stuff like that. So the brethren had a really difficult decision about what we were going to do with all these women and not very many men. And so one of the reasons why I think that they had this thing put out is so that we could have have a families, and so that the wives would have a family, and that they would have their husband who was in the church, and he could support that family. So when the brethren asked the men if they would have, multiple wives, it was not a thing that they wanted, actually. I think that they probably would want to have just a single wife and only have one family and all that kind of stuff, but I think it was out of necessity that they had to have more wives with one husband, because there was only one husband. And so I think it was quite a burden for those men. I had, of course, these men that I come from, And I know that, they'd have to stop at different houses every different day because that was, how difficult would that be? And so I think it was a great blessing whenever the brethren said, you don't have to do this anymore. And so, but I'm grateful to those men. We can all laugh about them, how, I have no life, but really I think I'm grateful for their sacrifice, that they were able to do that and help those women who needed a husband and wouldn't have otherwise had a husband, they wouldn't have had a family, they wouldn't have had the life that they had. And so, just wanted to tell you like that, a tender part of my history, and but I am grateful to those men who made that sacrifice.
Now, this house here was Martin Carroll Sr.'s home. It was one of the nicest one in Circleville. That's how it looked about, 20 years ago? It still looks the same, but, it looks repainted, and it's kind of modern right now. Martin Carroll Dalton Jr. That house right there, I was born in the attic. The door to the attic was in that back side, and it was just stairs going up. And my dad and my grandmother, after my mom got pregnant, they lived with them, and they had no place to put, so they went upstairs and remodeled the attic and made 2 rooms up there. A bedroom and I guess the living room, because they ate downstairs. But that house was never painted. It was just built and set there, still set. Matter of fact, I took my family to Circleville for a funeral recently, and I took them over there. It's the first time they've ever been. My daughter couldn't believe it. What?
How far Circleville is?
What?
How far away is it? 12 miles. 12 miles. 200.
Keep going.
It's across the mountain range north.
This is my grandmother and grandfather's grave in Circleville. This is my great-grandmother Elizabeth Alda Dalton's gravesite in Circleville. That's Julietta Dalton, another great-grandmother. Both of these were married to Charles Wigman Dalton, and they, after he left Circleville, went back to Beaver to his other 3 wives. They said, no, that's it. I'm staying. So they stayed and raised family there. And Julia Dalton, that's where Arthur is down from. Married. Go on. Now here we come to Edward H. Dalton. He was shot and killed in Fairlawn for polygamy. That was what that gentleman last night was talking about. And it was a good story, and he sang a great song. He is believed to be the only polygamist ever killed for being a polygamist. It's a Circleville cemetery. There's a lot of Daltons and Whitakers buried there. This is George Simon Dalton. He was the second son of Simon Cooker Dalton. And he ended up in Ogden, Utah. And he had 3 wives. And that's basically all I have.